Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champ AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, this is a special episode because this is our first guest of this season. We have the guy, the Theo, which we used to call him OG. Right?
Yeah,
Like, remember
Theo
Twitter?
OG Theo. Yeah, man. Look, go ahead. I'll let you finish the intro.
So he is with Fantasy Points right now. Theo has been everywhere talking fantasy football. If you want to get better as a player, you need to follow him. Theo, can you tell us where they can follow you on Twitter and all of your handles and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm at the OG Fantasy, Theo Gremminger, and everything's over at Fantasy Points now. Really happy and honored to be here. I know Scott Barrett came and did the live episode with you guys. That was an awesome one.
Yeah.
But I'm really honored that I'm able to, like, that you guys are able to break up the First and 15 flow a little bit, where it's the live show with like the studio guests. So this is very cool. But yeah, all my rankings, my articles, my podcasts. If you're watching this one on YouTube, the Fantasy Points YouTube channel, and then podcast-wise, School of Scott with Scott Barrett, Fantasy Football Daily, and then Dynasty Life, which I had over at Player Profiler I brought with me to Fantasy Points. So yeah, I'm sort of everywhere with these shows, and it's been a really good offseason, been a really fun one. We're almost in August, so this is the serious time, guys. This is we're in the money-making month of August almost. So let's do it.
And I got to say, like, I mean, obviously we see a lot of, content creators, especially in the fantasy space, come, go, come, stay. And everybody kind of has their own way of doing it. I never want to step on anybody's toes. However you do your content is however you do your content. I don't have an issue with it. It's not a hard thing to block, mute, etc. if you don't like something. But me personally, I really love the way that you have sort of kind of gone about this.
Yeah.
The way you sort of, I don't even want to say matriculated or, but just the way you sort of have created this Theo brand. It's, I know you're with Fantasy Points, and obviously I love Fantasy Points. We love Scott. Obviously they are sort of kind of giants in the industry as well. But I don't know, at least for me personally, I see you as Theo, and I see you right now with Fantasy Points. And so I'm definitely, very much, I won't say proud of you because it seems like,
No, I really appreciate that. Yeah.
We watched him grow up.
But I'm like watching like grow, and it's just like crazy because you just see him like on this upward trajectory. It's just like in a couple of years, like I'm assuming ESPN is going to have its own like fantasy segment. And I say all that to say, when you are on ESPN, do not forget about us. We want to be on TV live. Yeah,
And I know it's funny because like when we first interacted, I was doing high stakes content, and like that's where I got my foot in the door with the high stakes niche. And like my goal when I first started was to create content that would be consumed by like players like yourself, players like Chad Schroeder, Chris Vaccaro, like people who have made serious money and won a lot. So I think I like the fact that I had the high stakes background and I actually play for, serious money, and I value myself as a player. I think that made myself kind of relatable to people. And people bought into it. And I really appreciate that. And I don't want to waste anybody's time. I wouldn't want to record anything that I wouldn't listen to myself. I think there's a lot of fluff out there, and I think there's a lot of stuff that doesn't matter. And I think on my shows, I try to just unpack things we need to pay attention to and not waste anybody's time. Our time is valuable, and there's so many options in content right now. So just trying to build my audience, and I really appreciate the kind words though, for sure. So yeah, man, happy to chop it up with you guys tonight for sure though, man.
So let's talk about strategy for a second before we actually get into individual teams. Let's kind of talk about drafting strategy. Specifically, how do you guys think about, and you first, Theo, how do you think about drafting players that are coming off of injury? And then how do you think about some of those suspension risk players as well?
I think that it's a player by player take, and I think it's difficult to take like just a broad spectrum like, hey, I love taking everybody with injury discounts. I think every player is different, and I think we really need to assess why is this player at a discount? Can I trust this player? And again, it's case by case. Like, it's a trust factor for me. And I also think that we don't need to kind of make these decisions early on. I mean, certainly for you guys, when you start drafting in May, it makes a little more sense for you to try to like unwrap what's real and what's not. But I think for the average player, it's perfectly reasonable to see, how Christian McCaffrey's doing in camp. I think McCaffrey coming back and looking this good in camp, sort of is another green light to drafters there that it's okay to draft him. I do think that oftentimes we make money in fantasy football and we find wins by taking on risk that some other players might stay away from. So I think fundamentally the suspension risk player, I like taking the suspension risk players. I think over the years, the suspension risk player has paid off well for us, but I think that the injury player thing, that's a case-by-case specific where I want to look at each and every player. And the higher they're drafted, I think the more time you need to spend sort of scrutinizing just how healthy they are and just like how reliable will they be to kind of finish the season. You can factor in injury history. You can factor in just sort of the vibes. We have a ton of information available to us this day and age, both medically and beat reporter wise. It's like a constant drumbeat. And I think we can utilize that. But, I love seeing players that were injured last year that we get these positive glowing reports. Guys like Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey. We have like a lot of like really positive vibes right now on some of these guys who were injured last year. So I think for injury, I'll say case by case. But yeah, the suspension risk, I think usually that's a draft them, take the discount. If you miss, you miss. But more oftentimes than not, the fear is way too much in the community when it comes to suspension risk players.
Yeah. I mean, I think like 50-50 view, like I agree with you. But I also feel like
50-50 view?
50 feet, 50 feet view.
Okay.
A little bird's eye view.
Yeah, bird's eye view, whatever you call it. From way up top, way up high.
All right.
But no, I mean,
Dio right now.
Exactly like Dio's height, looking down on us. But I think it's at least, I don't know, this year I feel like I'm starting to like also consider the idea of, with just the depth of potential startable players week to week in a lot of these leagues that we're in, whether it's best ball redraft where you have 3 wide receivers or a flex, and there's just a lot of different options. It's almost like I'm drafting from a standpoint of, okay, I can take this injured player, but I'm fine just having him on the bench. So I don't want to necessarily like have this mindset of this guy is injured today, so I'm going to draft as if he's going to be injured throughout the rest of the season, or that he is injured in an unknown throughout the rest of the season. But to me, that's more important also for the guy who is at an advantage for him being injured. Like an example, for instance, Godwin versus Emeka Egbuka, right? So right now, if you're drafting, the hot name is Emeka. He's getting great camp reviews. He's got great draft capital. By all accounts, he is just killing it in camp. And Godwin, obviously, the last bit of news that we got was that he had some type of procedure. So all the negative news is on Godwin, all the negative news and all the positive news is on Emeka. And it's really hard to figure out how high should we rise Emeka and how low should we lower Godwin. And to me, it's kind of one of those situations. You can have your unique take on it. Like, you may be someone who loves Emeka sort of kind of profile and feels like he should have been like the overall number 1 wide receiver in this class. And then you can also have someone who maybe is like, approaching things from like a more kind of analytical medical standpoint with Godwin, understanding the type of injury he had, and that even with this most recent procedure, it's not necessarily a major setback, and that, by week 6, we expect him to be at 80-90%, right? So for me, I'm fine with either of these guys, with the idea that, maybe it's Emeka to start the season. Maybe it's Emeka to finish the season. Maybe it's Emeka throughout the middle of the season. And for Chris Godwin, maybe it's Chris Godwin on the bench for the first couple of games, but then when he comes back, he just sort of kind of alpha his way to that slot role, or he's a veteran and they immediately put him in that slot role. A lot of different ways that I feel like that could play out. So I try to figure out, like, try to find that fine balance. I don't want to just essentially say, okay, let me buy low on Godwin and gobble up a bunch of 8th, 9th round shares. And I also don't want to say I'm necessarily out on a rising Emeka. That fine balance to me is very, very difficult. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Dale? How do you handle? I know you kind of have a certain approach to injured players in general, but
So first of all, I'll start with the suspended players. I agree with Theo. I like to take the discount because I mean, suspended players, first of all, they're going to be suspended to start the season, right? So that's when your team is the healthiest.
Yeah.
All the players are available to you. You know, you have the depth. If you draft it well, you have a good bench. So you can kind of like supplement for that loss of production those first few weeks.
Yeah.
And with that discount, it's not an injury. So you know when they do return, they're going to be at full speed. Like they're going to give you maximum amount of effort or production that they can provide for you because there's no injury, nothing they're working through. They're just coming back. Right. And I love the fact that they let these guys practice now. So like they're actually in the playbook, they're involved, they're figuring out their role on the team. You know, take a little hiatus, come back, and let's go the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So I love taking discounts on those guys. Vice versa though, for injured players, I'm kind of black and white with it. I kind of avoid all injured players. Now when we talk about injury, I'm not talking about a guy that was injured last year and then they got healthy during the summer or the offseason. Now they're back fully healthy and they're ready to go. Who was like a C-Mac to me.
Yeah.
C-Mac felt like he's back. Like I don't see an injury risk right now. The injury risk for C-Mac is as the season progresses, he might be injury prone.
Yeah.
He might be worn down. But I don't think the injury he dealt with last year is an effect of what he's going to do this year. But somebody like Godwin, for instance, I'm avoiding him.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even touching Godwin. I don't care how much the discount you get because number one, I don't know how long the injury is going to last.
Yeah.
Number two, when he does come back, I don't know what where he's going to be at. Like, I don't know if he's lost his step. Keep in mind, he's older. I think he's 29 now.
Yeah.
He has more target competition. Again, he's coming off this major injury. I don't want to bet on that because the discount to me is not discounted enough. Yeah. All these players we're talking about, they're still being drafted in the starter range. And for me, the starter range is like round 1 to round 8.
Yeah.
You know? So I always kind of try to avoid those guys. Now, I understand a lot more people are more risk averse than me, and that's fine. I get it. But I've just been burnt too many times. So I just kind of go with what I know, take the easy money and take my risk somewhere else.
Dio, I just was curious. I like your take. I like the rules you follow. Yeah. My question to you would be, if it's a minor injury guy like Justin Jefferson, and it's still annoying in the back of your head knowing that there's a hamstring for a guy you're having to use a top 6 pick on, do you break ties and bump a CD Lamb, maybe a guy in the same tier head-to-head with Jefferson? Because I think, like, for me, it's a fully healthy CD Lamb versus a Justin Jefferson who, like, I had Jefferson ahead of him, but again, it's micro differences at this point in the year, but it's top 6 draft capital.
Right.
Do you weigh that in and go with a guy like Lamb if they're in the same tier?
So ironically, a few episodes ago, I actually said, and it was epiphany while we were talking about it, I actually said I actually have CD rank higher than Jefferson at that moment, just kind of talking through it. So in a vacuum, even if Jefferson was totally healthy, I would take CD. But if I had them equal, or even if I had Jefferson a slightly higher, that will be a tiebreaker for me, especially something like a hamstring that we know can be re-aggravated pretty easily. It's kind of tricky. Teams try to rush players back. He can come back and then re-aggravate it again. So that will be a tiebreaker. But at the same time, I would still draft him. I would still draft him in the first round, top 8 or get. I don't know exactly how I have my rankings at, but top 8, I would still draft him, feel comfortable because hamstring is not a severe injury. I do feel like he's going to come back and he's going to be ready for the season when it's time. So that's not a major concern. My main concern is more the major injuries, the ACLs, the LCLs, the broken ankles, something like what Stephon Diggs had. Like people like that, I try to avoid. Even though he looks good right now, I'm just still not kind of touching that type of profile.
And I will say, I mean, it's been slow, kind of like a lot of things you say with me, just like they just kind of fester in my mind and then they grow and grow. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see his point now. But there are like a lot of outs to them not succeeding. It's like they could have the re-injury, they could have a compensatory injury, they could be slowed back, you could be playing them like a couple of weeks, and the team has it kind of in their mind that they want to only play 50%, 75%, and now you're 2-3 weeks in of low in production, then you sit them on the bench, and that's 1 week where he gets 100%. Right. So it is tricky, but I'm gonna put both of you guys on the hot seat. Okay, y'all tell me right now, for people who are drafting right now, myself, are you in or out on the following players? Okay, Joe Mixon,
out completely,
out.
Okay, Isaiah Likely,
I'm in.
100% in on Isaiah Likely. I think, especially FFPC, we need to be all in on Isaiah Likely.
So you guys do not care about this injury?
No.
Well, it's for me, it's Isaiah Likely. There's some optimism he'll be there early in the season. Let's say that they are lying. Let's say that it's the first month of the season. Yeah. Then Mark Andrews can break down while we get Isaiah Likely coming back. and the whole thesis on Isaiah Likely is always, that he's got this upside when Andrews misses time. Yeah. Now I can sort of play it both ways here. And Isaiah Likely's he'll drop in ADP and I'll get that discount. Mixon just scares the hell out of me. We're talking about a 29-year-old running back. Likely's also going to get a huge contract. The Ravens are about to give him a Jake Ferguson contract. Yeah. So I don't know. I have a rational faith in Isaiah Likely having a massive season. I don't want to miss out on it.
Yeah. Right. So to piggyback on what you're saying and his questions. So starting off with Likely, like I was saying, the range of where you draft, like even before injury, the range of where you were drafting Likely was in the double-digit rounds. Yeah. Like he wasn't being drafted like a starter. Yeah. If you were starting him, it's because you were just, you were fading tight end the whole draft and you were just like scrambling at the end of the draft. So it's not like if you draft him, even while he's injured, he's going to hurt you too much because most likely you have another tight end. Or you probably have a bunch of tight ends in that range anyway, so you're able to fill it in. The problem with Mixon, and this is even before the injury. Well, part of it was the injury, right? Like I always was saying, we heard reports weeks ago that he was in a boot. I mean, even months ago, we heard he was in a boot. He wasn't practicing in OTAs or mini camp. But the biggest factor I saw was they drafted a running back in the 4th round who they traded draft capital this year and next year for.
And Woody Marks.
Yeah. Woody Marks, exactly. Mm-hmm. They still brought in Damian Pierce. They have all these. They still have Dario Gumbawala. It's like he just had all this competition that he felt like he didn't really have last year. Now on top of that, you had Nick Chubb. Well, he's not the same Nick Chubb as he was before, but he's still Nick Chubb. Mm-hmm. 80% Nick Chubb or a 70% Nick Chubb is still a valuable option compared to a lot of these other running backs out there. So at this point, when Mixon does return, I don't even think he's going to get the full workload. Yeah. I think he's going to be in some type of timeshare, or they might preserve him for the stretch run because he did break down at the end of the season last year, and kind of go that route. So I don't think. And again, going back to the draft capital thing, Joe Mixon was being drafted 5th round, 6th round, somewhere right there. Yeah. So you were drafting him as if he was going to be your starter.
Right.
Now, if he was going to like the 10th round, 11th round, okay, I'll buy him, but I don't know if he's going to fall that far.
Yeah. And you've been on the Mixon, kind of the avoid or be wary of Mixon train for like months now. Yeah. So I got a couple more because I want to get these again for myself in particular. Okay. Malik Neighbors. I mean, I cannot not watch Malik Neighbors and just like think to myself, why am I not ranking this guy the 101? But man, I mean, if you had him last year, you saw plenty of times where he was in and out of games. I mean, maybe sometimes it was just a hard hit, maybe concussion. Are you in or out? ADP, Malik Neighbors.
In.
Theo?
In.
All the way.
Yeah, you can't play Malik Neighbors. You can't play Malik Neighbors. Don't ignore the health injury risk with Malik Neighbors. Just go all in. Just close your eyes, go all in. Don't even listen to the outside chatter.
So Theo, you were gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say Malik Neighbors is sort of just like we don't want to miss out on a guy who could have 210 targets or something insane this year. So I don't know. Malik Neighbors, he described the toe as a mosquito bite that won't go away. To me, that was like a really positive kind of quote from an athlete where it's something where he's just sort of brushing it off. He's just going to play through it. Mm-hmm. The shoulder thing, I don't put too much weight into it. It sounds like he dodged every sort of bullet there. And I don't know, he's just unbelievably talented. And also going in a range of the draft where that could be the difference maker, the league winner type player right there. I don't want to miss out on that. With him, and also you're getting such a young talent. Whereas, you guys brought up Mixon. Mixon's also 29, and it's an offensive coordinator change. Everything worked out well for Mixon last year with Houston. This year, they have Kaylee in there. It seems to me like every move they made in Houston indicates to me that they want to pass the ball more. These were CJ Stroud type moves. The Woody Marks one, I like Woody Marks. I'll take that cheap bet on Woody Marks. I have him in pretty much every best ball draft, but I think he'll have some viability, like really, really low end RB2 viability. But he's a good enough pass catcher that you'll be able to use him in a flex I think, at some point during the season.
Yeah, and also going back to Malik Neighbors, so I'm assuming the injury you're referring to is the toe injury, or is it the shoulder?
Both.
Because
both
the toe injury,
yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Theo, but I think I heard he played with that all season last year. Matter of fact, I heard it goes back to his
college
LSU days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling me that the Malik Neighbors we got last year, who led the league in targets, was dealing with the toe injury that he's still dealing with now, I mean, all I've seen is the toe injury.
Playing with no quarterback.
You're actually excited me because you're telling me that if his toe gets healthy, I get a better Malik. Oh yeah. I need to draft him higher.
I'm not gonna lie. I go to bed every night and I keep thinking, I'm like, man, Malik Neighbors, like, should he be the 101? I'm like, legit. I'm not even. I'm not even.
Before you go to bed.
This is literally what I'm thinking about before I go to bed. I'm a sicko. But I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. Like, a week from now, you're gonna be hearing, like, if he's healthy, it's gonna be like talks about why is Malik Neighbors like not the 101. Russell Wilson, all these like little like hints of news. I'm hearing like they're moving Wandale around, which means they're probably moving him out of the slot, which means they may be moving Malik Neighbors into the slot. So let's even get some more easy targets. But who throws a better moon ball and down, than Russ, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think the overall offensive environment just to me seems better. Maybe the line is a slightly tad bit better. This could be his, like you said, this could be his absolute breakout season, and I just think he could just be absolutely dominant. I got one more for you guys, and then I'll let Chris kind of get back to the topics.
Sure.
All right, the left tackle injury for the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, Tyler Guyton, are you in or out, or are you lowering or worried about any of the Dallas skill players, specifically the passing game?
Well, I'm worried about that backfield, but I'm not worried about Dak, and I'm not worried about the receiving core.
Okay.
Is that left tackle make you more worried about the backfield? Is that what you're saying? Or are you just worried about it in general?
I'm just worried about it in general, but I'm more worried about it if they don't have a left tackle. I mean, like, they already don't have the talent in the backfield, and now if the offensive line isn't healthy, then that's just exacerbating the problem. So, I mean, we still, I say we because I'm still thinking about my running back days. As a running back, like, you still
were a running back?
Yeah. And I killed y'all too, by the way. Okay. But anyway,
you killed us. We weren't playing that.
Y'all weren't playing that.
What happened with all of
right now? I got like a buck 20. I got a buck 20. But no, but you still need the left tackle. Like, he's not only there for pass protection, he's there for the running game too. So if you have, like, if you're moving guys in and out of the offensive line, that's going to obviously hurt the running game.
Theo?
I'm very much in on the Dallas Cowboys passing game. I understand that they lose the tackle, but they do lose them early on in training camp. I think the vibes are good there, and I think it's just a betting on Dak, betting on CeeDee Lamb, betting on Pickens, and to some extent a little bit structurally with Jake Ferguson. I think the fact that we're so out on the running game and just embracing the passing game there. Yeah. I'm into it, especially Lamb. I think Lamb could have a really, really, really good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that team doesn't really I'm assuming they're going to have a similar offense as they did last year because the OC is now the head coach.
Yeah.
But I don't recall that team really doing a lot of deep plays, passing plays, which is where I would be concerned about not having a left tackle. You know, a long developing play.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a team that kind of does a lot of curls, hitches, in routes, things like that. And if that left tackle could just hold up just a little bit, I think the passing game will be fine. So I'm not worried about any of them.
Right.
I don't even know how good their left tackle was. I mean, I heard about him, but I don't know if he was like a great left tackle. So I don't even know if his replacement is going to be that much of a less value. But we'll see.
Okay.
Theo, are you a Cowboys fan or a Giants fan?
I'm a fan of so my history is I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I've lived in New York City, and I have some family from the Bay Area. So I was a Redskins fan / Commanders fan growing up. And now I'm become a sort of a neutral. It's my fantasy team. So I don't live in that with anybody.
You wear the hat that has the NFL like logo on it?
No.
Go NFL.
We got a couple of hats in the house that are NFL related, but it's my youngest is on the Raiders for his flag football team. So I have a couple of Raiders hats. I helped out with the team last year. But no, man, no hat on Sunday. If I want my players to score fantasy points, I'm not living and dying with anybody anymore. But I live on Long Island, so I sort of like, it's nice when the Jets win. My sons both like the Jets. They have Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson jerseys. So like we kind of like the Jets in the house. But I couldn't be like some like fair weather, like, hey, I'm back with Washington because Jaden Daniels there kind of guy. I've sort of like, I'm like a nomad on Sundays. I just watch Red Zone and that's it.
You can jump
It's
on
okay.
that.
Yeah,
You do whatever you want to do.
No bandwagon for me.
It's your
No
world,
bandwagon.
man.
No bandwagon.
You're Theo. You can do whatever you want.
All right, guys. We actually got a question that came in today. Normally, once we drop a pod, we get just a rush of questions, but we actually got one today from an older pod or from a pod from your draft from last week. And so I kind of want to talk about that for a second. I want to show that question because one of the listeners stated that one, they shouted out the actual format because not only are both you and Dayo drafting, but you got a chance to kind of go through your process. But one of the big questions they had is just draft strategy. And so we were kind of talking about it in the group chat. Like, what is the optimal, like, if you could think about, if you hit just the nut on other people in your draft, what is the optimal draft start? Like how would you want to start in a draft? Would you want to draft at the beginning of the first round, end of the first round, middle, and what would be that initial start that you would want if you had to choose?
That's a really interesting one. I'm sure this question's for you guys because you guys did. I watched some of your main event show. It was really good. I've sort of been open to multiple places in these drafts. I think lately I've heard people being like anti-drafting towards the top, but I love the idea of being able to start out my draft with a Bijan Robinson, a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Jamar Chase, a CeeDee Lamb, and it also gives me access to those really, really strong early third round picks, specifically in FFPC. In some other formats, I think it's a little bit different for me. If it's NFFC, I think drafting towards the back with the third round reversal is a huge advantage this year because of all the firepower we're seeing in that 2-3 turn type guys, especially with the wide receiver requirements. I understand the fear that some FFPC drafters have where you miss out potentially on multiple tight ends if you're drafting in that, unless you take Brock Bowers in the first round, of course. You're missing out potentially on some of those high-end tight end scorers if you're picking in the early portion of the first. But I just love that idea. It opens me up to getting either a wide receiver that I think can be wide receiver 1 overall, also these running backs who could average like 25 points a game this year. So I sort of am leaning towards wanting to get that pick at I think the 104, 103, 105 is going to end up being a really, really strong pick when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I like this question, and I kind of really wanted to talk about it because I have been drafting since February. I told you I was a sicko. Okay, yeah. I'm not lying. I've been drafting literally since February. Okay, since February, and I also love just going back and looking at the draft boards. So I will probably maybe once a week, once every other week, go back through just kind of all my teams from early February to now. And it's just crazy to see the movement on the board. So what I find myself, doing is right now or a month ago, the first team that I drafted, I was absolutely in love with. I was like, oh my God, I hit on all these guys. I got late round RJ Harvey. I got Cam Scatterboo in the 12th round. I got, I just hit on all my guys. And then I'll review it a couple of weeks later. News comes out, training camp, depth charts comes out, somebody gets hurt. And then you look at that same team and you're like, man, I really do not like this team. And then another week passes and it's like, oh, this team actually isn't that bad. So one, the board moves so much. And then based on the news of the day or the news of the time or how much news is coming out that week, you may be in love with your team and then you may not be in love with your team. So I only say that to say that, just get in the draft, tell yourself a story and, think strategy, think about optimizing the draft and don't necessarily worry about man, I missed out. Like you said, I missed out on the tight end. I missed out on Kittle. I missed out on Bowers. I missed out on McBride or whoever you were shooting for, because at that time, like, it was nothing but positive news, because in the end, we don't know. But the main reason I love this question is I actually thought they were asking about, like, is this the year for, to be a hero RB? Or is this the year to go, robust RB or zero RB builds? Last year, I think a lot of us were doing, or, at least making sure we were getting in quite a bit of just like zero RB builds, wide receiver early on, heavy builds. And it was just an anomaly last year as far as not only the majority of running backs staying healthy, but you also saw a little bit more on the wide receiver end when it came to injuries. And then you also saw a lot of vets who stayed healthy pretty much throughout the year and then really dominated. Outside of McCaffrey, like, it was a really, really good year for RBs. But I think if you go back to the year before that, it may have been, and it's hard for me to recall at this stage, but it may have been a heavy wide receiver year. So I think there's a lot of recency bias for us too, as well as far as looking at the board, because the guys that we drafted also did well this last year, and we're sort of kind of pulling that over, to this year. And we may look at the end of 2025 and see that a lot of running backs got hurt. Things sort of kind of regressed to the normal NFL mean when it came to injury and production. And this was actually the year for a heavy wide receiver build. So, ultimately, I feel like we don't know, like, we really don't know. So I want to make sure as a volume drafter that I can, like, get as many unique builds as possible.
First of all, the Super Bowl is February 9th. So if you started drafting in February,
I did not care about the Super Bowl.
You were drafting right after the Super Bowl.
Did not care about the Super Bowl. Just cared about my fantasy teams. I'm like Theo.
There you go. I love the Super Bowl though, guys. Come on, take a day off. Take a day off.
Take a day off. What about you, Daya?
So I don't understand the question. So is it what part of the draft you want to draft in, or what's the strategy? Because
I think I misread it. I think it is your preferred strategy, right?
Strategy?
Yeah.
I don't really have a specific strategy. I think they all work if you draft the right guys, right? Because if you draft, let's say you draft robust running back, right? Which to some extent people could say is like to some extent be a fragile team, because if you have injuries, then it kind of just kills your whole team.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, if those guys don't get hurt and they all smash, you're gonna run away with the league, right? No problem. Vice versa, you have zero running back. You get all these high-end receivers, great receivers, and then you just happen to draft the backup running backs that end up taking the place of the guys that were drafted in the early round. They end up going down. You're going to smash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just simply draft the guys that's the optimal players, like DFS, right? I like to kind of build a team where it's like I have my own small pool of DFS players. Because I play a lot of DFS. So, when it comes during the season, I'm trying to pick. You have all the options available to you, but like, which guys can I fit into this lineup that are all going to hit?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way I kind of see drafting sometimes. Like, which guys, if I just draft these guys, are all just going to hit. So all of them work out, in my opinion. That's why we play the game, right? That's why we let the season play out. And it's not just about the draft. I think a lot of times the fantasy community puts too much emphasis, and I'm not saying it's not important, but they put too much emphasis on how their draft goes and not so much emphasis on how you mold your roster throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very fluid thing, right? Like, if you drafted, a certain team 2 years ago, but then you ended up picking Puka off of waivers that year, he'd probably put you over the top, right? So it's a lot. I mean, I guess I'm not giving you the answer you're asking for, but I just think it's a lot of different ways you can skin the cat, and you just kind of stay on top of it and just try to compete it. You never know what happens at the end of the race.
But I think that's a really good answer, because ultimately I think the way to kind of sum that up is, like, don't force anything. You don't need to force anything. Like, if your running backs go and then, like, you're staring at a wide receiver who just, like, fell around past value, and you can build this, like, crazy zero RB team, like, don't run from that. Embrace that, because you don't know that team is not going to hit.
But I think the question is getting at, if you had to choose, if things fell right for you, then how would you want that draft to go? Because I think they want to know that, hey, if these things fall, like if they are in that draft and it falls that way for them, do they follow their gut instinct and what the experts are saying? And to
no such things as experts. But here's the problem.
Here we go again.
Here's the problem. I think we can be a little bit overconfident in our evaluation of players sometimes.
Yep.
Well,
So you can say if it falls the exact same way, ideally the way you desire it to be, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the right process.
We don't even have to argue this point. Literally go back and look at 2024. Go back and look at 2023 of your favorite fantasy football analysts. Go back and look at my takes. Go back and look at your own takes. And you will see how often and how much you're wrong. If you were to ask me like who I thought my highest scoring team was going to be from 2024, I would have gotten that wrong 10 times over. Same thing for 2023. Same thing for 2022. Like, just because you like it, like the funniest thing, and I do this too, but the funniest thing is like looking at a board on Twitter and someone being like, I just absolutely killed this, or like, who's going to win? Who's the loser? Who's the, like, we don't know. Like, we literally don't know. It's like, I mean, we don't even get into start-sits discussion. There is a lot of in-season management that really is important. Yeah. You still need to be able to draft. You still need to draft the right guys. But I think, ultimately, like, I want people to feel comfortable, like, being able to draft whatever team, like, you can build, like, the best build that you can make. And if that happens to be robust RB, then build the best robust RB team you can, because that team can hit if it's the right players. Right. If people fall to value, like don't pass up value.
And this is not Madden. It's not like we can turn off injuries, right?
Yeah.
Injuries are going to occur, and we don't know who are going to get injured. It's like you're playing a game of whack-a-mole, or you're walking through a field of landmines. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You can hope for the best. Yeah. But, I mean, I had a team, and Theo, I'll let you chime in a second, but I had a team last year through like 5 weeks was smashing. I had Godwin. I had Rice. I had all these players was killing. I was like, oh, good. Yeah. I don't even have to worry about the waiver this week. Like, don't worry about my team is set. Yeah. 2 weeks later, I had Malik Neighbors on that team too. Yeah. 2 week labors. 2 weeks later. And I couldn't do anything to fix it because I couldn't drop these guys. Yeah. It's like they became anchors on my team. So it was kind of unfortunate, but
no, man.
I mean, we've all had teams like that where, I had a couple years ago, I thought I thread the needle on this main event team where I had Kyron Williams, I had Devon Achane, like literally I had too many running backs that I couldn't even pick like who to put in the flex each week. And then, of course, these guys start breaking down. I think the biggest takeaway listening to you guys talk is I think you really pigeonhole yourself when you go into a draft. And I think a lot of kind of not necessarily novice players, but I think certain players that maybe don't draft a lot of teams might go in their big home league and say, this is the year that I've got to go running back. This is the year I've got to go 0 wide receiver. I think like going into a draft and make the most dangerous pick, the biggest edge pick you could possibly make is always the best strategy. And then your build sort of creates itself as the draft starts moving along. Yeah. If you go through 4 or 5 rounds and you're suddenly in a 0 RB build, just lean into it and go for it. If you go into a draft and your best 3 picks are running back, you're right there. And I think there's some FFPC managers this year who might be holding a Brock Bowers, George Kittle team. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be something that kills you. So there's a lot of different ways to win in this. Lean into the edge and then let your build sort of build itself. And like you guys talked about, you don't need to hit on each and every pick in the first 7-8 rounds. You do need to hit on a couple of, I think, more and more often hitting on that guy in rounds 8 through 12, like maybe one or two of those guys becoming foundational players for you. That's a big key. And then grind the hell out of the waiver wire. And to what you guys were talking about earlier, like last year was an anomaly because we had all these running backs staying healthy, and that created a season where there weren't too many big waiver wire hits either. Whereas the year before was even a much bigger waiver wire year. So this could be a year where the waiver wire returns and a bunch of backup running backs end up being really, really important draft picks for us.
Yeah. So we just started camp. Obviously, we're starting to get more and more information that, like on teams, on offenses, who's running with the first team. Guys, let's talk about camp for a second. Is there any notable camp news that has kind of moved the needle on how you're drafting players at this point? Is there anything at this point that makes you feel better or worse about players that you're drafting?
So for me, it's y'all know I don't really like, I call it fluff, all these beat writers, anybody giving their opinions on what they're seeing in camp. I don't really pay attention to that. What I pay attention to is real simple. Who is a backup that's getting burned with the ones, like where they are on the depth chart, especially your rookies. You know, the people that we know nothing about them. We've never seen them in an NFL jersey. So the team is getting them, and they're like trying to figure out where they're going to fit them in. Is this guy going to be a vital or important piece of the puzzle for our team, or is this guy going to be a depth piece? So that's really what I'm looking at, because I don't know if Abby says it, somebody says it, but if you wait too long, I think Theo, you say this a lot, but if you wait too long to see it, you're going to miss it. You know, and I don't want to miss it, right? So that's what I'm looking at. I'm just trying to see who's getting a few reps with the first team, because it's probably a guy nobody's thinking about. A guy can get like in the 15th, 16th round. Just kind of leave him on my bench. If he hits, great. If he doesn't hit, I can throw him back in the water. So,
I will. You know, this like our show motto. Credit to Dale for this. # Stay ready. Like when I think about like what that really means. You know, a lot of people like listen to the shows, and there's like some good, you know, they give us, you know, they tell us it's good content, and we appreciate that. You know, I think they like the flow, they like the energy, they like the sort of kind of that we just, you know, are talking not necessarily with our chest, but like what we feel. And obviously we have, you know, money stakes in the game. But if you really listen, and I'm telling you, go back, check the timestamps, go back and listen. Like player names and takes get thrown out, and sometimes it's very subtle. But that is the # stay ready. And following things like who's running with the ones, you know, who's starting to like, you know, run inside the slot, you know, just little things like that start to become very prevalent. But those things always get mentioned on the pod. And it is like clockwork. 2 or 3 weeks later, that guy is now getting buzz. And so go back and listen to the previous episode. Dale has a ton of gems about late round guys, but I'm in 100% agreement. I am human though. I do like hearing my guys are getting more burn, and my guys are doing well in camp. So for me, like one guy that I'm just absolutely right now loving, especially because of his ADP, I'm already way overweight on him, is Closton Loveland. And you know, he obviously wasn't healthy throughout OTAs. Now he's healthy in training camp, already immediately getting work with the ones, you know, and it's also everything that's going around that team that you can just sort of kind of tell yourself a story of how he may lead this team in targets or be the leader in targets towards the back end of the year. You know, there's already the preseason or pre-camp news of, you know, Caleb does better with the short and intermediate game. They want to get him in a more structured offense. They want his completion percentage to be, you know, higher. Obviously, they drafted Closton Loveland super high, and I'm a Closton Loveland fan. You know, if you just turn on the tape, the guy just looks like just a beast of a wide receiver. So you just start to kind of put the dots together. We're all sitting here trying to figure out who's going to run the slot, who's going to be the receiver to own, and it may still be one of those receivers. But man, what if it's the tight end? Like, what if it's the tight end? So that's, you know, if I had to like pick one, like Closton Loveland, you know, if his ADP does not like approach like 8th, 9th round, I may end up with like 100% here on out. I shouldn't be saying that live on TV, but
I love your Colston Loveland take. I think it's really sharp, and just all the vibes with him, all of the coach quotes, like everything with Colston Loveland is there. Not to mention the draft capital they spent on him, just the level, the prospect that he is. I love that take, and tight end 14 right now in FFPC. So even if he comes up a little bit, it's not like there's going to be a resistance point where he probably can't get past like the tight end 10 level when we get to the end of the month. So I'm with you. I think Colston Loveland, and I think that a lot of the arguments for these rookie tight ends are it just can't keep happening every single year. But maybe this is the way the NFL is turning, where we saw multiple seasons in a row where it's just rookie wide receiver after rookie wide receiver after rookie wide receiver making massive impacts for us in fantasy football. Just because Sam Laporta and Bowers did it 2 years in a row doesn't mean it can't be 3 years in a row. These players come in the league ready. So I love your Loveland take. For me, the player that I've been like most excited hearing about is not a player that I necessarily think we need to be drafting besides best ball, but maybe I think there's going to be a time this season where he's definitely in the quarterback streaming a discussion, but the vibes with Michael Penix are unbelievably good right now in
That's
Atlanta.
interesting.
And I think that's super important for us because Bijan Robinson could be the league winner. Drake London could be the second round pick that we need at the wide receiver position. And I think everything with Penix is just this guy could end up being like an elevator of the talent on the team. Atlanta averaged like close to 23 points per game last year. I think it's going to be Zach Robinson and Michael Penix, that combination of offensive coordinator and quarterback, like lead this offense to new heights. They could be the team that takes one of the biggest steps forward as an offense. And I think we're just getting all sorts of vibes from the Atlanta beat reporters of just some of these special plays Penix is making, an unbelievable arm. And it seems like, you know, the argument that all the like multiple Washington wide receivers didn't hit last year that were drafted very highly, like I think that matters. I think Penix could be a guy who really elevates players around him.
So real quick, I'm gonna chime in. I'm gonna take over for Chris for a second. Theo, first of all, I didn't know we were saying the players we liked in the camp. I thought we were just talking about how we
we going.
So Theo, I want to know.
I'm sorry.
No, I want to know because I already know how Abby thinks. How are you receiving this camp? Like, are you looking at it closely, and is that affecting the way you're drafting, or are you more kind of brushing a lot of it off? Or what exactly are you valuing? What is important that you're reading about or seeing tweets about, and what are you just kind of ignoring?
Well, I think the thing that we really need to pay attention to, and it's something that you guys kind of alluded to, was we love hearing about, especially these rookie running backs that we think have that are the probable handcuffs in the offense, getting opportunities to run with the first team. That matters to us. And I think we, you know, you guys talked about it early in the offseason. We certainly talked about it countless times, just how good this running back class is. And I think we're starting to see it based on some of the vibes that we have coming out of camp. Jarquez Hunter running with the ones today. Brashard Smith has run with the ones. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt feels like Alfred Morris part 2. Like there's multiple guys. DJ Giddens getting opportunities, potentially the clear handcuff there. So for me, I think as drafters, a lot of times the market doesn't move ADP wise on these rookie running backs that are the clear handcuffs. Obviously, Taj Brooks should move up a little bit today after Zach Moss was cut. But I think sharp people were already kind of drafting Taj Brooks anyway. But for me, I'm paying attention to the reports for these rookie running backs. We already know sort of what we're getting with like guys like Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson to an extent. But for me, it's really these day 3 running backs. Was this draft class just so good that we're going to have multiple guys coming out of day 3 that are going to be fantasy viable for us for multiple weeks of the season? I think we could be there.
Okay. And then my second thing I was going to say was when you were talking about the tight ends and how we might be in an era where these rookie tight ends are actually coming in ready, got me thinking, maybe what's happening is, like you were saying, these receivers, they're starting to come in ready these last several years. Maybe the tight ends being that, you know, a lot of these tight ends are almost like converted receivers, like Elijah Arroyo or Rondé Gaston. They were receivers in the past. Maybe the college game is more putting the passing like skill set on their tight ends. So then when they go to the league, you know, because I always feel like the NFL is just mimicking what the college is doing, right? College does things first, and then eventually it trickles into the NFL. So maybe the league is just saying, you know, all these tight ends are now more valuable, and we can use them in the passing game. Maybe we don't care so much about how much they block. And for fantasy purposes, it benefits us in the long run. So maybe that's what's happening. If that's the case, then definitely we should start to not undervalue these rookie tight ends as much as we have in the past.
Especially when they lead their college teams in receptions and receiving yards, or the primary options, at least when
now, with all that being said, just to pour a little bit of cold water on Loveland.
Don't do that.
Because I just heard this recently. So I just want to say it, just so everybody's aware.
Yeah.
The one I read that he doesn't, stats-wise in the past, he's not a big yak guy. He doesn't get a lot of yards after catch. One of those guys that gets a reception, you know, gets tackled pretty quickly. Doesn't break a lot of tackles, I think they were saying. And also, I think they said he only had one game last year. And Theo, you probably looked at the stats close to me. I think he only had one game last year where he went over 100 yards receiving. I don't know. So it's just something that's a little bit of concern that I didn't know about before. His skill set looks great, but I don't know if his production is as desirable.
It's all about skill set. Yeah.
But because I mean, and Theo, you can probably comment to this, and because I'm not a huge college person outside of UT, apparently, like the Michigan quarterback was just terrible. So like,
Yeah.
and then
JJ
obviously,
McCarthy or the most recent one?
no, the most recent.
Both.
Okay.
No, JJ McCarthy said it. No. But yeah, no, the most recent was like apparently like just
Okay.
like so that was one thing that hindered. But also he had like health issues too as well.
Gotcha.
I mean,
I think when it comes to Loveland, I think he gets definitely a pass from like last year with Michigan, where they were really challenged on offense. But he still led them in every single category: targets, receptions, receiving yardage, touchdown catches. And I like to point back to the year before when the offense actually was functional and like really, really good. It still was run heavy. You know, it was the Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, JJ McCarthy handing the ball off a lot. But Roman Wilson only had, I think it was like 2 or 3 more receptions than Loveland on that national championship team. So like he nearly led them in receptions on the national championship team as well. So I think Loveland definitely gets a pass in terms of the college production for sure. And I love your take sort of on the way the game's going. I think we could point at a lot of things. I think it's that receivers come to the league more ready. High school offenses pass a lot more than when we were younger. The rise of 7-on-7s, just every high school passes now. Guys get to college ready to play, and they show up to the NFL. I think another thing that's interesting, and we talked about this I've talked about this on pods for a couple of years. It's just this prototype size player where it was like the Evan Engram size player, the Trey McBride, the Sam Laporta. They're all like Brock Bowers. They're all like 6'4", and we hope they're 240 to 245 range. Like you don't have these 275-pound tight ends anymore. So they really are just overgrown wide receivers that are just really versatile players. And teams are in 12 a lot. Every team wants to run 12. We saw the contract that Josh Oliver was given this year by Minnesota. Like that matters to us. So I think there's more and more situations to feature these guys early and often, and you're able to protect them with these 2 tight end sets oftentimes too.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I want to pivot to a question that I think we've all kind of talked about, especially when drafting. We always talk about dead zones and things like that, and about where the rubber meets the road. I want to talk about this 3rd round because it's still high draft capital, but I want to talk about 3rd round bust and league winners. Can you guys go through the 3rd round? I'm going to put up a board that I actually drafted in just for context, and I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but let's talk about the 3rd round players. I know we kind of talked about this before we got onto the pod, but think about those 3rd round busts. I start with busts first, and then we'll go to league winners. Is there anyone in the 3rd round that you feel like is going to actually be a bust that you're just avoiding at all costs?
I mean, I've talked to Abib about this. I don't know why, and it could burn me this year, but Kyron Williams, I just feel like we're chasing last year's volume, chasing last year's stats. He's been so good for 2 years in a row, but I could see this being the year where it sort of falls apart. Devontae Adams is going to be a huge part of that offense. Puka Nacua, obviously, is Puka Nacua. We saw that stretch with Kyron Williams last year where the fantasy scoring just wasn't there in the second half of the year, where it was like a lot of Nacua and Kupp together. I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm drafting the most dangerous player that I can when I use that early 3rd round pick on him. A lot of times he's going at like 27 overall. For me, I'm just not into him this year, and it could really, really burn me. But I think it might be Kyron. And on the flip side, I like Jarquez Hunter. I think we could see opportunities for backups in LA. It's just been Kyron Williams has run so pure for 2 straight years. I think he could catch up to him.
Man, 3rd round.
Yeah, now I'm in agreement with the Kyron Williams. I was, and I was like that year Kyron and Puka came out, like those are my like highest owned players in our dynasty league. Like those are the 2 guys that I own. So I love Kyron for what he did for me, but I've been off of him actually for the last 2 years. And I don't even feel like last year was necessarily that much of a miss. I think obviously he held value, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like he was a league winner. I felt like that 3rd round, I really want to shoot for league winners, guys that like should have been drafted in the 1st round. If I got to give a player, this may be cheating a little bit because I think sometimes he goes into the 4th round. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like this is a scary one because, like, obviously he's a young talent. He was the first wide receiver taken last year. And prior to him stepping on an NFL field, like, he was talked about as if he was like a generational talent. So clearly last year he did not do well. And I was in on drafting him last year, in that, early 2nd round, I think is where he was, ultimately settled. So maybe there's a little bit of recency bias, but I just have like not seen a lot of changes in Arizona. I definitely think he will improve as a player. But again, when I'm like looking at drafting somebody in the 3rd round, I want that guy to return me 2nd, 1st round draft capital, not just sort of kind of hold steady. So for me, I just worry that Kyler is just Kyler, okay? Still struggles kind of seeing and reading defenses, struggles throwing the ball over the middle of the field unless the guy is Trey McBride, or 6'4" and taller. I struggle with the offense and the offensive coordinator specifically. I've never really been a Petzing guy, and I don't really think there's a lot of just sort of kind of nuance to his offense. Could change, but that's another if. I think they want to run the ball. I know they started passing a little bit more towards the back end, but I still think this is a team that prides itself on defense and managing the game on the ground. So I just worry about just the offense itself, and more specifically, like not a lot changing outside of us, hoping that he's going to take that next step, and we should expect that. But more importantly, is his role in the offense going to change enough to where he's going to bring back again, sort of kind of that upside value, or does it just change only enough to where he's a serviceable wide receiver too? So that's my bust.
So, I think he could Dan Williamson and I in the main event, we took him at the 402. I agree with you. Like when he's in the 3rd round and you see people taking him at like the 304, and some people might say it's close, but it's not that close. It feels like there's a tier break.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I agree with you. Like putting him next to a guy like a Garrett Wilson, where Garrett Wilson, we know he's going to be the number 1 target. We know he's going to get a just pretty much the highest target share in football. And then we look at Marvin Harrison Jr., where we actually have like question marks with the usage. I think the way that he can burn us this year is touchdowns, but I don't think it's going to be him taking like this next step and Arizona completely figures it out. So I'll take my exposure to Harrison Jr. in the 4th, but I agree with you. I can't pull the trigger in the 3rd, especially when he's next to these true alpha wide receiver 1 types with unquestioned usage.
I don't know. I kind of like Harrison. There's some arguments to be made for Harrison, right? He's going into his 2nd year. He was the top wide receiver in the draft last year. Everybody, they say he's good. Like we don't know. He didn't do the combine, but everybody talks about how generational he is. He was at Ohio State, like the most recent wide receiver competed with LSU, and he was the top wide receiver there. And we love Ibuka, we love Garrett Wilson, we love Olave, we love Jason.
Are they overrated though? It's like,
man, I don't know. That's a whole nother.
They haven't had the wide receiver. I mean, Terry McLaurin got the wide receiver 1 season last year. Garrett Wilson technically was the wide receiver 1, but LSU is just sort of boat racing him.
The wide receiver 2 university.
It is a rock.
But then just like I say, just going in the 2nd year and maybe just figured it out. Maybe he heard all the criticism and people, going to last year, everybody's like he's the guy. Now everybody's like he might be the 4th, 5th guy from that draft class as far as talent level. So maybe he has a chip on his shoulder. And he, as far as competition, other than McBride, who's a tight end, there's no other wide receiver there, right? I mean, they got Michael Wilson, they got Dorsch. Who else do they have? So I see opportunity there. I'm not saying I'm stressing to pick him up on every team, but I can just see how he can return great value even in the 3rd round. But as far as my bust, and I don't want to say bust because I think all the 3rd rounders could, be successful if things kind of play out the right way. But the person that scares me the most is actually Breece Hall.
Yeah, you talked about him.
I'm nervous about him. I'm nervous about his role, even just where he's being drafted. If I look at him on the draft, and I was looking at the draft board Abby just showed me, there is like 3-4 running backs that are being taken right after him that I actually might like more.
Yeah.
I might like Kenneth Walker more than him. I might like Kamara more than him. Kind of watching what happened with James Cook, but if James Cook does get that contract, and they say he's going to get a similar workload, I mean James Cook had a damn good season last year. Yeah. So those are all guys I might take over him. Not to mention, it seems like the Jets might be trying to be in more of a committee this year. Those other two running backs they have, and even remember last year we were talking about it. Yeah. I know you were kind of brushing off Isaiah Davis, but I was like, man, he's actually pretty good.
I brushed off everybody.
Drafted him pretty high, Not to mention they also had what's the other guy, Braylon Allen, who I've heard he's doing pretty good in camp. So, and then on top of all of that, just simply the fact that when Breece Hall came back from injury last year, he just didn't look the same. Yeah. Now, for whatever reason, maybe he was still kind of hurt. Maybe the offensive line was not doing well. Maybe the team just kind of just gave up. Maybe the team. I don't know. Whatever reason it is, he just didn't look good. So I'm not as excited to draft him now because I feel like people are just ignoring all of those factors and they're just still taking him as if he's going to be a prime running back one. So he's the one that kind of scares me the most. And I know you're in Jets country, Theo, so you can probably
I'm like Breece Hall's weird because we had that period of the summer where Aaron Glenn came out and said that it's going to be this committee, and you started seeing Breece Hall get into the fourth round, and you're getting those Breece Hall fourth round shares. Now you get all these smart people. Like there's a lot of people really flag planting Breece Hall industry wide, and I think it's sort of kind of leveled itself out where now he's back inside the third round. I don't know. For me, I think Aaron Glenn really likes Braylon Allen. Just the way he talks about Braylon Allen. I've talked about this with Scott Barrett. Braylon Allen is just an absolute freak. He's 21 years old. He's 240 pounds. He's like, and I love talking about this one. Like Robert Saleh, when they drafted him, he was like 242 or something. And Robert Saleh is like, to his strength and conditioning coach, he's like, let's get Braylon Allen down to 230. He'll play better if he loses a little weight. And the strength and conditioning coach is like, he can't. He has one of the lowest body fat percentages on the entire team.
Wow.
It's like bottom 5 body fat percentage. So like Braylon Allen's like just completely big time athlete, big time runner. And I feel like these coaches sometimes want to gravitate towards these kind of players with the size. Mm-hmm. You get visions of Derrick Henry, that sort of thing. Like I think if anything, Braylon Allen's going to be in that elevated David Montgomery role. You bring up Isaiah Davis, who could just be pretty good. I think Breece Hall, the way he gets there this year is he catches a lot of passes and he gets to be the number 2 receiver on the team. But we also have question marks about just how much receiving volume he could get in this offense. So Breece Hall's never averaged fewer than 15 points per game. So that seems like just such a layup type pick there. And Justin Fields could potentially open him up for bigger running lanes. He's never played with a mobile quarterback like this. So I get it, but I'm kind of with you where if I'm in the middle of the third round, I don't feel like he's the most dangerous pick I can make. And you bring up some certain red flags. I think that they're there. So Breece Hall could be a guy who could shift leagues this year. He could end up being a great value, or he could end up being a guy who's like 13 points a game instead, and you end up with some sort of purgatory selection.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised that no one brought up Devontae Adams. He's going in the third round. He's really the only, him and maybe T. Higgins are the only receiver twos who are going around this area where other receiver ones and other clearly number 1 targets are going to go. Why not Devontae Adams? I mean, do we still and not only is he aging, he's going into a new system. Now, granted, he is going to a LA Rams system with McVay, where he is going to a great offensive mind. But why not Devontae Adams, given, how old he is and going into a new system?
I would just say that's an excellent segue onto third round league winners, because Devontae Adams would actually be my third round league winner. I can't believe you even put him in the bust category. But no, I get that. I mean, that like things like that I think are important, because I always say I'm human, but like I will get on a player and then I will like really get on a player, but it's like that type of commentary that's like, okay, like calm down a bit. Like I like him a lot, but let me not push him into like the back end of the second round or anything like that. I think the age, obviously, he finished strong last year, but before he finished strong, he wasn't looking all that great. It did take him sort of kind of teaming back up with with Aaron Rodgers, his old friend. and he kind of just alpha his way, in an offense that was, it just seemed like they were just, I don't want to say had given up, but it was basically like, let me get Devontae the ball and kind of like ride out into the sunset for Aaron Rodgers there. But I really do like Devontae Adams this year. Like, I think, I don't know if he's my league winner in the third round, but he's a guy that I really like getting in the third round. I just feel like there are a lot of outs. Basically, in my mind, I don't know if he's playing the Cooper Cup role, but if he's playing the Cooper Cup role or the Puka role or some combination of it, I think he's golden. As long as he stays healthy, I feel like that system has such a narrow target tree. And what I love about him is, like, in short area spaces, like, he can get open, specifically like at the goal line. He can score in the red zone in so many different ways. And last year, I had I had a ton of Puka, and I'm watching them in the red zone, and outside of Kyron, you're seeing a lot of Demarcus Robinson, and it wasn't just like, Stafford scrambling around and going through 1, 2, 3, looking at Cup, looking at Puka, and then getting to Robinson. It was almost like they were scheming Robinson open. So I do think that they want somebody who can operate in the red zone from a receiving standpoint. But who knows? Maybe that's Terrence Ferguson or somebody like that. But I like Devontae Adams because I feel like he can get there with the receptions. Obviously, a massive amount of vacated targets. But I also think he can like really smash leagues. One of those like aging wide receiver vets that just like destroys, but everybody's fading because of the age. And year in and year out, we always talk about these guys. Remember a couple of years ago, we were talking about Keenan Allen. And there's some old study that you can Google that I Googled, and it lays this out perfectly. And it goes through like all of these aging wide receivers and how, like, if they're elite, they can dominate, especially when they're on a new team. Because that was like the conversation we had. These aging wide receivers who were playing well, but then go to a new team. And turns out they actually do pretty damn well. So I'm putting my money on that. Like we talked about that tier break, towards the back end of the third round and the fourth round. Like, that's a beautiful spot to get Devontae Adams, So yeah, that's my league winner, since we segued into that.
All right.
Yeah, he was, 17 points per game last year, plus on 2 bottom 8 offenses, and he was traded midseason. I think the only reason people are fading him in this situation is 32 years old. Scott Barrett brought up the guaranteed money. I don't know. For me, it's like Devontae Adams sort of handpicked this situation for himself with LA, and it's the most functional offense he's been on in quite some time. And Puka's just not, like, I love Puka. I think Puka, we talk about like Malik Neighbors as like this elite target earner. I think Puka Nacua also is a guy who's at some point in his career going to have that 185 target season, maybe more, but he's just not a guy that they're leaning on in the red zone. That's a great point by you. Devontae Adams is exactly that. So like Sean McVay, when we have an advantageous situation, like he'll lean into that. We saw these spike weeks for Cup. We saw these spike weeks for Nacua. Adams could have some just unbelievable spike weeks, like 30-point type games, really could push you over the top. So I'm very bullish with you on Devontae Adams there. And our projections guy at Fantasy Points has had him as like a top 10 wide receiver, top 12 wide receiver since we started doing these projections. He's also projecting Nacua to be like a top 3 scorer at the wide receiver position. So there's a lot of like reasons to like Devontae this year, I think.
So who's your third round winner, or your third round? What was the term you used? I don't know.
What, like league winner?
League winner, yeah. Who's your third round league winner?
So for me, I think by the time we get to the main events in Vegas, I think it could end up being Amari and Hampton. I'd like to see what's going on with Najee Harris, but I think everything's sort of setting up for Hampton to have a massive year. Again, if this is something where, the Harris like fears are a little bit overblown, he ends up coming back, then we'll maybe have to adjust there. But I'd say, like, I think that like you said, there's a lot of like interesting players in the third round this year that I could see having really, really big years. I love the vibes with Garrett Wilson and Dio. You bring up like fading Breece Hall. I think this is a like everything that the opposite extreme with that we have with Breece Hall, where the coach speak for Garrett Wilson has been about as good as it gets, and they give him the massive contract, and he's with his former college quarterback. And Justin Fields is the best quarterback Garrett Wilson's ever played with as a pro. I think this could end up being a really, really good season for Garrett Wilson, and he takes a step forward from last year. He's been one of the best target earners that we've seen in the NFL on like a 3-year period. And I think like him being the focal point of New York, them really leaning into what Garrett Wilson can give them. We saw what happened with DJ Moore, with Justin Fields. There's no reason we couldn't have that sort of success for Garrett Wilson. I'm getting a young ascending player in a much better situation. And I'm getting him in that wheelhouse where I'm getting him like mid-third sometimes. I think he could end up paying off really, really big time.
Real quick question. I want to go back to the Omari and Hampton thing. The one thing that's getting me, because again, I have no issues with him going in the third round if he, and him paying off third round value. But if I'm drafting him in the third round, I want to see that he can pay off like even higher value. And the one thing that's like, I don't know, that I have a roadblock against is the Greg Roman history with his RBs and his running backs in the passing game. Like, can we get there without him like really being a threat in the passing game? Because you would assume that even if Najee's out, like, obviously he's not going to get 100% of the role. So is it that you're not worried about that, or that he will get enough, or you just think like just through efficiency alone or through touchdowns? Like, how do you think, what does the smash case scenario look like for Omari and Hampton? Or
yeah, I mean, I think that you certainly have a capped target ceiling as the like. I think Ladd McConkey is going to get about as much as he can handle there. We really do believe in Justin Herbert. I just think when it comes down to it, LA could take a really big step forward. It's year 2 for Harbaugh. It's year 2 for Roman. We have a ton of faith in that offensive line. We have a ton of faith in that offense being able to churn out first downs. And I think that it's just a situation where Omari and Hampton at the end of the year could end up with like 13 rushing touchdowns, a lot of rushing yards. And he's just a good enough player that just being on the field a lot, he's going to catch some passes. And again, maybe it's 45 passes that he catches, but it's not going to be like some non-pass catcher role. He's just too versatile, too good a player. But I think it's rushing yardage. I think it's rushing touchdowns. I think it's big explosive plays. And I think it's just being in a really, really good offense. Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to it. I get the Greg Roman fears, but Harbaugh is a big voice there. And when we try to think about like what has been a really good Harbaugh team, it's a bell cow running back. It's the Frank Gore years. It's Blake Corum at Michigan. And this is a player where despite, having Najee Harris, they take Omari and Hampton in the first round just because I think he's that good of a talent and they believe in him so much. So I think that Hampton is just an awesome player, and we're getting even a little bit of a discount with him redraft-wise because Ashton Genty exists in this class. If there was no Ashton Genty, I think there'd be more enthusiasm overall from the community on just how good Hampton could be and what a bell cow player he could be like early on and for many seasons of his career. So I just kind of believe in LA, and I think he'll end up being a big focal point for them. Just provided this Najee Harris situation stays kind of weird.
All right, guys. For the last topic of the day, I want to talk about Travis Hunter. He's been a big source of controversy when it comes to the group chat. Theo, I want to get your take on it. Is Travis Hunter a value or a landmine? Do you really believe that he can play both sides of the ball?
No leading questions.
No, I appreciate it. The legal mind of 1st and 15, getting a little leading on that one. Like, I'm so glad that we're volume drafters where we can take some Travis Hunter, but not have to make that decision in one single league. I took him in one main event. So I have a good amount of Travis Hunter because I have him in a main event. I think he's an unbelievable talent. I think he could have big spike week ability, and he could have games where he has multiple touchdown catches, because I think the fact is Brian Thomas is just unbelievable, and defenses are going to have to account for him. The thing that I worry about, guys, is injuries to their defensive backs. Are they going to be pressed in a situation where Travis Hunter has to be like the number one corner on Jacksonville because just there's attrition among the cornerbacks? Like, little things like that stand in the back of my mind, but I do think that they don't want to put an overwhelming amount on him defensively. They want to get a lot out of him offensively, and he's just a different kind of player. Like, I think that he's an unbelievable athlete. We saw it at Colorado, his ability to play a lot of snaps. We've just never had this sort of situation in fantasy football. It doesn't mean it can't work. And he's going in a range of drafts. Hopefully we see him get pushed down where we see a little bit more, maybe a little early 7th, if people start getting a little bit more fearful about the defensive side. But I did pull the trigger in the 6th round on him in a main event. So I think it's definitely a guy with, if it works out, he's going to crush that ADP. And if it doesn't work out, I still think he can give you spike weeks because of how talented he is. So there was a time where he was going side by side with Jameson Williams, where I was gravitating towards Jameson Williams. Now Williams is moving up. So I think Hunter, I'll check the most recent ADP with him, guys. We're looking at him like, do I want to take him ahead of Jalen Waddle? No. But when I look at the other guys going next to him, I'll take him ahead of Aaron Jones. I'll take him ahead of David Montgomery. I'll take him ahead of Jerry Jeudy. And I'll take him ahead of Evan Engram. And all of those guys are sort of side by side with him in these FFPC drafts. So if you're chasing upside, I think Travis Hunter is there. I think one thing about Travis Hunter is you guys talked about draft strategy, structure. You don't want Travis Hunter to ever be your wide receiver 2. You want Travis Hunter to be sort of your wide receiver 3 in your flex. I think it's a structural pick as well, just because of like the variables and the outcomes.
Yeah.
Dale?
I ain't gonna that. I don't want to talk about Travis Hunter.
Well, what's your take?
I'm tired of the Travis Hunter discourse.
Well, are you're in or out? In or out?
Where's he being drafted right now?
6th.
6th round.
Towards the end, mid.
I might take him in the 6th. He was being drafted in the 5th initially, or maybe the back and 4th. Hell no, I wouldn't do that. Maybe
we've seen it. We've seen in the Big Gorilla. And shout out to Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo. But we saw a 7-7 Travis Hunter in a recent Big Gorilla. So like, if I get access to that, I'm taking him there every single draft. 6th round is still.
Yeah. How about this? Travis Hunter, like let's do what we always do on the podcast. Yeah. Travis Hunter or Juan Jennings?
Oh, who?
Juan Jennings.
Juwan?
I call him Juan.
I think Juwan. You just took an A.
I don't think it's pronounced Juwan.
Like
we've been calling him Juwan. I think it's Juan Jennings.
You think it's not?
That would be I think it's Juan Jennings.
Juwan.
No, that Bijan just said, "Hey,
Bajan. I'm pretty damn sure it's not.
I think
it's Juan Jennings.
Kelsey said his name is pronounced Kels.
It's not Kels.
I think he said that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, he did, but nobody's gonna.
I always say Kels.
Oh man, the fantasy community is just arrogant. We just do not care. All right. No, I'm taking Hunter. I'm a Hunter. I'll be the Hunter mark. So like, if everybody's like pass on, good luck. You're not in the draft with me getting him in the 7th round, because if he's in the 6th round, I'll say like mid to late 6th, I'm drafting on. It's just one of those guys I'm just closing my eyes on. So
I'm going Hunter.
Yeah.
I'll go Hunter over Jennings. I like Jennings, but I think like Hunter, it's the unknown upside. It's this. Yeah. I mean, he was just unbelievably good last year and having to play both sides of the ball. And he was the number 2 overall pick. So I got to go with him over Jennings. But I do like Jennings.
How good Jennings is. I mean, he had that big spike week last year with like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, he was okay.
Roma Dunza.
Hunter for me.
I think I'm Hunter over Rome as well. I think Rome's actually going to move up in drafts. So I think that's going to be a head-to-head decision the drafters are going to have to face.
But what have you seen in Rome that would make you just be so
changing situation, draft capital?
So you're speaking on potential.
I mean, we're speaking on potential when we're talking about.
Look, this is the thing. Hunter has played both sides like 100% before. And I love the way that he sort of kind of brought up the fact that the college game is faster. There's less timeout breaks. Like the timeouts are shorter. So like the time in between plays is shorter. So like him doing it in college, I think to him, he said like it's easier for me to be able to do that in an NFL. You know, obviously we don't want.
He wasn't healthy in college. What are we talking about, guys? Like we're talking about. I'm sorry. Listen, he wasn't healthy in college. He missed multiple games in college. He couldn't stay healthy in college. So we expect him.
That was kind of a cheap shot. I got him hurt though.
Yeah.
All right, but
exactly.
He still.
He played enough to win like the best cornerback and the best wide receiver of the nation.
All right, great in college, but let's not act like I'm not saying like I don't buy the whole like but they're gonna put Hunter on the other team's
Why
best
is this question in here? Did you put this question?
I put this question.
Oh,
in
he
here.
put this question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also, here's the thing.
I put this question.
He's still like it's not about him covering the other team's best receiver. It's about him covering the other team's best receiver and them running to his side of the ball and him having to come up and actually tackle
He
playing
did this
both
last
sides.
year. He did that last year.
But not in the NFL. You cannot tell me that coming up and stopping this level of NFL running backs is going to be the same.
He's not going to be tackling running backs all that often. He's a
They're going to be
cornerback.
running to his side of the ball.
Quarterbacks don't really tackle running backs like that anyway. You're going to regret it. You are going to regret not having. Just suck it up.
50 ball?
Huh?
50 ball.
Put it. Put 50. Yeah.
50 on.
What finishes as a wide receiver 2 or higher?
That's it.
You're getting
What do you say, Theo?
Wide receiver 24 and a half. Give yourself a little wiggle room.
Yeah, I mean, like that's pretty good.
What is that?
He's not even being drafted.
No, he's not even being drafted there, but it's the conviction. I think. I mean, what's Travis Hunter right now? He's like wide receiver 27, wide receiver 28.
So 28.
Yeah, 28.
He
basically 28 and a half.
Over under
28 and a half. He finishes as a wide receiver. Points per game finishes as a wide receiver 28 and a half.
He's going
minimum of he's going under? Okay, yeah. You put 50 on that one.
All right, 50 ball.
Points per game or
Wide receiver 32 right now. Abib, you can give yourself even a little bit more room to run there.
Oh, we gotta go 20.
No.
You gotta say 28.
You were talking about that before.
Come on, 28.
I'll take 28 and a half. I'll take 28 and a half.
There you go.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. Like it's on wax.
All right, are we? Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Theo, I've been doing this thing for since last week, where it's like I'm starting to list out my sleepers. So I got an ongoing list. So I'm gonna just list them out. I'm not gonna give too much commentary on them. And if you wanted to add some at the end, because I know you're probably deep in the trenches I am, please do so. All right.
Stay ready segment. Stay ready segment.
The ones I said. I want to repeat the ones I said last week, just in case people missed it. So I'm
I
going to
wish
go
we
quick.
had like some graphic.
I'm gonna go real quick. You're wasting my time. Come on, the clock's going.
Thumb up or thumb down.
Elijah Mitchell, Chiefs. Phil Maffa, Dante Thornton. These are guys I spoke on last week. So if you want to hear what I said, you can go back last week. Juwan Johnson, Taj Brooks, Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, Jordan Watkins for the Niners, Tyler Conklin, Mitchell Evans for the Panthers, Diami Brown, Malik Washington for the Dolphins. I was gonna say Elijah Moore, but I might be off of that now. LaQuint Allen, Jarquez Hunter, Rashid Shaheed, Jalen Lane, and Keandre Lambert-Smith. Those are guys I said last week. All right. To add to this week. Oh,
and this is before last week too. Some of these guys you talking about for months.
No, I've been talking. I just said the list last week.
Yeah.
Tyquan Thornton for the Chiefs. I don't know, man. I'm just maybe best ball pick. I don't know. Not redrafted at all, but he's doing some stuff there. Devon Vele. I don't know. Again, I put this before Sutton got the contract, but they like him. They actually started him. He's old as hell though, like 27.
Yeah,
but they've been using him. Parker Washington. When y'all were talking about Hunter, I was actually thinking about Parker Washington because if they do use Hunter more as a DB, they got Parker Washington ready. You know, and he'll take a lot of those receiver snaps. Emmanuel Wilson, because my boy Marshawn Lloyd.
Oh man,
I feel terrible about Lloyd.
Oh my gosh, it's so sad.
It is, right?
You know what's sad?
It's sad.
When it first came out, it was due to him getting hit by Nate Hobbs. So it was like, okay, he got hit low. That sucked. But then like a day later, they like, no, it wasn't from the hit. He got hurt before he got hit. So it was a soft non-contact injury. It's like, golly. So I was like, you know what? Emmanuel Wilson, what are you doing? Come on.
Come on down.
Come on down, man.
Come on.
You know. All right, so a few more. Kate Stover for the Texans, tight end. He's been getting a lot of reps in practice, like a lot of reps. Dalton Schultz is obviously still the guy there.
Reverend Jordan is who.
He's not been getting as many reps though. Stover has been getting a lot of reps with the first team.
I saw some clips of Reverend Jordan.
No. Trust me. The next guy I'm actually excited about. Kevontae Turpin.
Okay.
For the Cowboys.
That's a sneaky one.
They've been playing him all over the place. And I think he had two of the fastest times last year. As far as when they're, gauging how fast as far as touchdown. He's like a best ball pick because he's not being drafted at all. And if he has a real package there, he can be useful.
Best spin move in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, he saw it. And then two more, Keyshawn Butte. I'm never gonna give up on him. LSU. Yeah. He was the guy at LSU, man. I don't know what happened. Like, I don't want to give up on that. I feel like he's still there. He's starting right now, by the way, for the Patriots.
Betting saga.
And Gunnar Helm for the Titans.
What? Yeah, you try to stick that one in there. I heard
that. So Theo, you have any you want to add?
No, I love your list. I think that all the rookie running backs that you named are all guys that I have exposure to. Love the Taj Brooks one. I mean, Taj Brooks, one of the most valuable handcuffs in football, but you don't have to pay the valuable handcuff role. Cincinnati, we would all bet on them being like a top 5 scoring offense. And I think he would be sort of like for like with Chase Brown. I think he'd catch some passes. Yeah. I know that people bring up Samaje Perine, but Perine was sort of I don't want to call him a nostalgia re-signing, but it is a guy that was the former Bengal. They bring him back. Yeah. So I think Taj Brooks is very much a guy that you want. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I know you brought him up. Love that you're on Rashid Shaheed. The ADP for Shaheed doesn't move. He's at like wide receiver 55.
It's crazy.
He's 190 pounds now, so he put on 10 pounds of muscle. He's talked about to the media about how Kellen Moore has expanded his role. He had like 4 top 18 scoring weeks last year and was like 13.5 points per game. And I think he's one of the last like wide receivers that you are drafting confidently in drafts. And we already saw it last year. So I love that one. I push back on the Mitchell Evans one because I think Jatavian Sanders is going to be a thing. I think Sanders is in a really good spot at tight end in Carolina this year. I love your Cade Stover call, just kind of year 2 tight end breakout. We've seen this story before.
College
quarterback narrative, and Stover, like people like Stover a lot as a prospect. So yeah, I think fading Dalton Schultz there, going with the younger player. No, you don't really want to draft Dalton Schultz anyway this year. I never feel, even in a big best ball, I never want to add that to CJ Stroud like correlation. So I like a lot of those names there. Kavontae Turpin might be the most fun one. It's the sort of like everybody stinks in the Dallas backfield, and let's just get Kavontae Turpin out in space a few times a game. It would be really fun. I don't know if it would ever be fantasy football viable, but he's just nasty with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. But do you have any to add? Any other sleepers?
No, I didn't prepare any sleepers. No, but Phil Maffa one. It's another just chaos in the backfield. I think it was Schottenheimer this week said, I'm feeling Phil. He said, I'm feeling Phil Maffa. So there's some good stuff there for sure.
It's my mission to raise Phil Maffa's ADP to undraftable to the 20th round. 20th round.
I don't know if undraftable, just leave him,
I'll say just to add to my Omarion Hampton enthusiasm, if the volume's going to be there for Hampton and Najee Harris is just like, who knows, then we need to be paying attention to whoever wins the Hassan Haskins versus Kamani Vidal battle for the number 3 running back. That becomes a really important one for us for fantasy managers, just because I think that offense could be really good, and it's going to be a lot of volume asked upon the running backs. So Haskins has the connection with Harbaugh. Vidal, obviously, like a lot of people loved him as a prospect last year. There was enthusiasm with drafters. Waiver wire, we're picking up Vidal. So like that story hasn't been fully told. Wilson's interesting, but I'll throw out Chris Brooks too. I think Chris Brooks, there's some enthusiasm for him among that coaching staff. I think he might be a little bit better receiver than Wilson. And there's always been sort of a Chris Brooks hive. When he was in Miami, there was people that just thought he was unbelievable. Yeah. He's big and fast, and he can catch the football. Wilson, they like too. So I think paying attention to that, especially considering how much volume we think Josh Jacobs is going to handle this year, one of those two guys would be one to keep an eye on.
Quick question. Because you were talking about the Michigan offense a little while ago. Do you have any thoughts whatsoever on Khalil Mullins?
Other than just it's a backfield where he's different. We have the 2 running backs that are pass catching, dual threat kind of guys. Khalil Mullins, he had a couple of really, really good games, like that USC game for them last year. He was just an absolute hammer in that game for them. That was a big game for Michigan. Obviously, he played on the defensive side of the ball. It's the physicality and the fact that they took him in a sort of a loaded draft class of running backs where they still took Khalil Mullins. So I think it would take an injury to Spears or to Pollard for him to get an opening there. But he's definitely an interesting name just because he's very, very different. Do they want to use a physical back this year? I think he's one to pay attention to sort of in preseason. But I like Tajay this year. I think Tajay, I have confidence drafting him. And I think he's going to be a thing, at least at ADP. So I have confidence in the two running backs, but it's just, can they hold up? Yeah. Khalil Mullins, though, he is an absolute hammer.
Yeah. So do you like Tajay at the expense of Pollard, or you just like both?
I think I like both because I think that Cam Ward's going to be better than people think, and they just have a lack of weapons there. I think Pollard might not. I think Pollard is more of a structural pick, and I don't mean that to denigrate him. I think that he's a fine structural pick. I think he gets you through. He doesn't elevate your team. But if you get stuck and you need to get an RB2 and sort of a hero RB build, I think Pollard's a fine one there. But I think Tajay, if we go back and look at what he did his rookie season, catching the ball, the games that he had down the stretch last year, if Cam Ward can take this offense up another notch, and we don't see, you brought up Gunnar Helm, certainly Chigakonkwo's there, but if it's tight ends cannibalizing one another, you have Elik Iamaner and Chim DK as the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3, which I think is a possibility that's rookie. Then there's going to have to be players besides Calvin Ridley that they're going to utilize a lot. And I think Tajay Spears as sort of a safety valve target underneath for Cam Ward at times, that makes a lot of sense to me. Spears was a guy that there was that period of time before Pollard signed where we were drafting Tajay Spears really, really early. I know in some of those Abib type drafts where it was the February drafts, early March drafts, you were probably mixing in some 5th, 6th round Tajay Spears. So we had enthusiasm for him then. Yeah. I think it could be a post type sleeper type season for him.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Sorry, Chris. Last question. You're in the 18th round, right?
Next year.
Who are you drafting? And you don't have your defensive kicker yet. Who are you targeting?
In redraft right now, I think it's got to be Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt before it gets.
No, defense and kickers.
Oh, defense and kickers.
Yeah.
I'm open to several, but I think for me, I like the free look teams. So I always sort of gravitate towards the free looks in FFPC and NFFC. Okay. Whoever's available, free look, and then I'll add somebody else off the waiver wire.
So the Chiefs or the Chargers?
Chiefs, Chargers, you name it. Whoever I can get in that free look.
Yeah.
I'll shout out to Dan Williamson. This is always sort of a Dan Williamson, a Nelson Sousa one. I'm sure in a B-Bag Batoba one. When we get a free look, we take it. And there's probably no better position to do it than kicker and defense. Because a lot of times, we talk about ADP being wrong, us being wrong. We're often wrong on the kicker you need to roster. And we're often wrong certainly on the defense. We've seen years where we're cutting the number 3 drafted, number 4 drafted defense a couple weeks into the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Good answer.
All right, guys. That's our episode this week. Theo, thanks for dropping in, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fun.
No, thanks for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun for sure.
Thanks for coming in. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.